What if Luffy steals every devil fruit from his enemies? What happens at Marineford? Does it rewrite the entire One Piece story? I wondered the same thing, so I wrote the story and animated it with AI, like it actually happened in One Piece. Here's what went down. The Straw Hat crossed the sky over Logtown like a sentence. Luffy raised his fist toward the storm and laughed like he knew some hidden secret. In that laugh lay the secret that would change the Grand Line forever. Because the Gomu Gomu no Mi had never been an ordinary rubber fruit at all. It was the Hito Hito no Mi, model Nika, the fruit of the Sun God, and its only limit was the imagination of whoever bore it awake. Nobody yet knew that limit was about to shatter in the worst way. Every defeated enemy would surrender something more than their pride to Luffy himself. Every time he fought hand to hand and beat a devil fruit user, the power of that fruit would move into the body of the Straw Hat Boy. The sun gave him everything. That was the secret rule, and Luffy was going to discover it that very week on the wet cobblestones of Orange Town. Buggy the Clown waited with the knife in his hand and the painted laugh. He trusted his Bara Bara no Mi to dodge cuts from any blade. The fruit let him split his body into pieces and mock the edge. He was invincible against Zoro, and he knew it perfectly from the start. But Luffy did not use a sword. He loaded a Gomu Gomu no pistol with all the fury of East Blue and sent the clown's head flying skyward. When Buggy fell defeated on the cobblestones, something strange happened. A faint light sprouted from the clown's body and moved toward Luffy's chest still. Luffy felt a new heat on his skin. He raised his arm and without stretching it, separated it from his shoulder like an old forgotten toy piece. The arm floated a meter from his body. Luffy stared at it. Then he laughed and understood that something impossible had just happened to the astonished boy. He tried another thing. He stretched that detached arm into a wavy rope and wrapped it around the unconscious body of the defeated clown without effort. Rubber and separation at the same time. Two fruits in one body. That should not exist according to the laws of the world, but had just existed anyway. Zoro saw it and frowned. Nami went silent. Usopp, when he joined later, christened it the gift of Nika, the present of the Sun God. That night, the first poster arrived. The Marines had issued it within hours. 30 million berries for the head of the new young monster of East Blue. The poster photo showed Luffy yelling with his mouth wide open and his eyes shut. The red seal of the world government glowed at the paper's bottom. 30 million was an absurd figure for a rookie without a full crew, but the Marines had already heard rumors they could not share with the public. In Whiskey Peak, the Baroque Works agents waited with poisoned daggers. Zoro did most of the work, but Mr. Five crossed paths with Luffy first that night. Mr. Five could turn any part of his body into explosives. His snot was bombs. His breath was gunpowder. He was pathetic and deadly at the same time. Luffy dodged 3 explosions, drove a Gomu Gomu no bazooka into his chest, and left him embedded in a wall with his eyes rolled back in white. The light came back again, this time orange, hot, vibrant. It entered Luffy's chest and mixed itself with the 2 other fruits already stored inside. That night, in secret, Luffy tested it. He pointed at the sky with his finger and fired. A small explosion lit up the desert for one brief instant. Zoro saw it from the ship and understood that his captain was evolving towards something no East Blue pirate had ever dreamed of in his life. On the road to Alabasta, Mr. 3 appeared, the wax agent. He turned Zoro and Nami into white statues, ready to die under the burning desert sun. Luffy arrived late, but not too late. He burned through the wax with his fists and struck Mr. 3 so hard the agent dropped instantly unconscious. The white light of the Doru Doru no Mi entered Luffy's body. Immediately, he tried hardening his fist with a layer of clear, shining wax outside. The next blow rang like a hammer against a bell. The wax worked as offensive armor, a new tool to add to the growing arsenal of the boy. At Cape Reverse, before crossing into Alabasta, a blue figure leapt aboard amid laughter. Mr. 2 Bon Clay came to try his luck early in the journey. The Main no Mi let him copy the face of anyone he had touched. For an infiltrator, it was the perfect fruit of the Grand Line. Bon Clay copied Nami's face to confuse Luffy. It did not work. Luffy headbutted him on the nose and sent him flying into the cold open ocean. When Bon Clay climbed back up, beaten and almost crying, Luffy treated him like a friend. They shared meat, but the pink light entered the sleeping body. From that afternoon on, Luffy could copy faces by touching them, a tool of infiltration for someone who had never in his life known how to infiltrate. In Rain Base, Crocodile waited, the Shichibu Kai with the Suna Suna no Mi, a loggia of sand that turned his fists into dry, deadly desert in seconds. Crocodile laughed when Luffy asked to fight head-on. He impaled him with a sand hook and left him bleeding on the floor of the royal cave. rage. Luffy got up. Crocodile impaled him again. Luffy stood up once more. The third time, the Shichibukai understood that the kid did not know how to surrender. In the final fight over the royal tomb, Luffy soaked his fists with the blood pouring from his wounds, and the water gave him back his matter. Crocodile stepped back for the first time in his career. The water trick was a personal shame he had never foreseen. The Logia lost to a soaked kid. Luffy charged a storm 5 times more powerful than any previous attack. The blow lifted the Shichibukai to the ceiling and buried him in ancient marble stone. When Crocodile fell upon the sand of his own city, the golden light came out of his body and moved toward Luffy with the slowness of sun. The light sank into the boy's chest, and something changed in his forearm. The skin filled with shining grains that moved around like tiny living storms. Luffy opened his hand and the fist crumbled into dry sand. He closed it again and the fist rebuilt itself whole. It was a Logia, fully his. He walked to the palace exit, feeling the entire desert respond to him like a giant pet. The sand followed. The sand listened. The sand was him now. Vivi cried with gratitude. Nami counted the loot. Zoro looked at Luffy and understood that his captain had crossed a line from which he would not return. Within days, the new poster arrived. The Marines were not playing anymore. The photo showed Luffy with a wild stare and his teeth clenched in raw fury. 300 million berries, 10 times the previous figure. A jump no rookie had ever made before after a single fight against a defeated Shichibukai opponent. The poster had an extra stamp printed on top in red ink like fresh blood. It read, "Confirmed Logia threat. Priority capture by the Cypher Paul Division." Sengoku saw the poster in his office and stayed staring at the photo without blinking. He muttered the surname Monkey. Something in his chest tightened tight. Garp spat out his coffee when he saw the figure. He laughed himself to tears first. Then he sat silent for a full hour facing the headquarters window. Nobody in the world knew it yet, but the Straw Hat Boy had just joined the Monster Club, and he was only starting his journey for real. The Going Merry rose to the sky, pushed by an impossible current. Skypiea appeared among white clouds like a dream nobody had ever asked for that night. On the golden altar of Upper Yard, Enel waited seated with his arms crossed over his chest. 4 drums levitated in silence behind his godlike back. Enel was the self-proclaimed god of the sky. The Goro Goro no Mi let him become pure lightning and travel at 200 million volts per second. No human could touch lightning. No human could survive a single impact. Enel believed himself untouchable, eternal, divine, a perfect Logia without any weak spot anywhere. Luffy was made of rubber. Rubber did not conduct lightning. That simple physics law was about to shatter the faith of a lying god that very afternoon. Enel hurled a lightning bolt the size of a mountain, and Luffy absorbed it with his chest like warm rain. Then he returned the calm punch. But this time, Luffy did something new. He charged his fist with dry desert sand that had been dormant in his forearm since Alabasta, and struck the god. The sand absorbed the moisture from Enel's electric body and left him mummified for half a second. Enel did not understand how a brat had dried him alive. The fight lasted less than anyone could have imagined. Luffy combined sand and rubber. He trapped the god in dry whirlwinds and ground him with elastic punches. For the final blow, Luffy lifted Shandora's golden bell over his head and dropped it onto Enel with all the symbolic weight of the old sky. The god fell. His golden crown bounced 3 times across the clouds. His drums went silent. His frozen laughter remained trapped in the sweet, still air. And then the yellow light came out of his body, a vibrant light that crackled like 1,000 furious wasps. It moved toward Luffy at thought speed. When it entered the boy's chest, the entire sky of Skypiea lit up for 3 full seconds. The locals thought the sun had come down to greet them. Luffy opened his eyes, and they were yellow. Tiny lightning bolts jumped between his teeth when he laughed. His hair rose up, electrified deep within his bones. He raised his hand, and a perfect bolt shot from his index finger. It lit a nearby cloud and turned it into rain. Luffy clapped like a child. Then he tried something crazier. He turned his right forearm into sand and his left into electricity. The sand sparked. The electricity crackled across the dry grains. He combined the two. He launched a sandstorm charged with lightning against the empty sky. The storm cloud hung for whole minutes over Skypiea without ever moving. Zoro, from far away, whispered that the captain was no longer human. Sanji spat out his cigarette. Robin smiled for the first time in years with strange brightness. That fight was never published. The government buried the Skypiea report under 7 layers of secrecy. But the poster came out anyway, with priority black seal. 500 million berries. No public photograph, only distributed to the admirals and the Shichibukai. A poster classified by the cipher pole with the word forbidden. The document said, anomalous bearer of multiple powers, immune to electricity, sand manipulator, capture with 3 admirals minimum, never to be engaged alone phone ever again. Sengoku burned his copy. Aokiji stayed staring at the photo for a full hour. Kizaru smiled as always, but this time the smile trembled just slightly. In the Grand Line, nobody heard from Luffy during the following weeks. The crew went down to Long Ring Long Land, then to Water 7, the calm before. The Going Merry creaked for the last time at the Water 7 dock. Luffy cried over the wood. He promised a new ship. Then Robin was kidnapped. Spandam and the CP9 agents took the archaeologist toward Enies Lobby. The sea train left under the rain. The Going Merry died that very same night. Luffy swore he was going to burn the flag of the world government. He said it quietly, with his eyes lost on the dark port water, silent. On the Judicial Island, the 7 CP9 agents waited with the pride of those who had never lost a single fight. Rob Lucci led the group coldly. Lucci had eaten the Neko Neko no Mi model leopard, a Zoan that turned him into a giant feline of 3 meters with claws like curved sabers. He was the most dangerous agent of the world government. His combat power surpassed any mid-rank Marine. He was, on paper, practically impossible to defeat ever. Luffy reached the rooftop of the Judicial Tower, covered in dust, blood, and rage. Lucci waited for him in his hybrid feline form with a hunter's smile. He told Luffy that the government flag still flew on the roof. He suggested taking it down before dying. Luffy stared at the flag for 1 second. Then he looked at Sogeking. He made a single nod with his head. Sogeking understood and fired the fire arrow that split the flag into 2 clean pieces. The declaration of war against the world government was written in smoke. Luffy turned to Lucci, smiling. He told him now they could fight without distractions left. The fight was short and brutal. Luffy combined sand and lightning from the first punch. Lucci dodged with feline speed, but the sand followed him through air. The moment Lucci unleashed the full Rokushiki, Luffy turned his body into lightning and rammed him from within. The leopard flew through 4 walls, one after another. Lucci stood up with his jaw broken and his lungs full of static electricity. He attacked again. Luffy answered him with a huge Gomu, Gomu, no sandstorm. The whirlwind of sand wrapped the leopard and drained the moisture from his body. Lucci fell mummified, gasping. Luffy loaded the last punch with wax hard as diamond. The strike passed through the Judicial Tower and left Lucci buried 3 floors below, unconscious on the rubble. The hybrid feline form dissolved away little by little. The golden, stained light came out of the defeated agent's body. It entered Luffy with a soft roar. The boy showed fangs for the first time, grinning. When he jumped toward his crew, his reflexes were feline. He dodged bullets in the air. His pupils narrowed into slits when he focused on a moving target. Robin asked from the dock that Luffy go after the entire world government, not for her, for all those who would suffer the same later. Luffy agreed. The ship escaped Enies Lobby covered in fire. The Judicial Tower was collapsing behind. The broken flag floated on the water. The pirate era had just changed. 3 days later, the new poster arrived. The photo showed Luffy with dried blood on his cheek and yellow eyes shining under the brim of the hat. 900 million berries, almost triple the previous one. The poster said in big letters, "Declared enemy of the world government. Live capture impossible. Eliminate on sight." At the Marine headquarters, there was an emergency meeting that very night. Sengoku banged the oak table until he split it in half. Garp laughed loud after. Akainu proposed mobilizing all 3 admirals together. Aokiji opposed for the first time in his career. Kizaru, as always, said they should wait a little bit more. On the private islands of the Yonko, the posters arrived by messenger. Whitebeard stayed staring at the photo for a long while. Then he laughed his deep laugh. He told Ace his little brother was growing faster than any son of the sea. Ace smiled with pride and kept the poster under his pillow. Kaido laughed until he coughed up blood. Big Mom bit into a whole candy without removing the wrapper. Shanks raised his cup eastward and toasted alone in silence. And on a nameless island in the darkest corner of the Grand Line, Marshal D. Teach looked at the poster and licked his lips with vast patience. At Thriller Bark, shadows and zombies fell during one single long night. Luffy solved the problem with dry sand and focused lightning in under 3 hours. Nobody worth fighting was left standing. The floating island sank. The Mugiwara kept moving on, without wasting a single extra day on that passing matter further. Bartholomew Kuma appeared at the Sabaody archipelago with orders to exterminate the Straw Hats. But something had changed in his instructions that very same morning. Rayleigh, the Dark King, had intercepted him in secret. He had spoken to him about the Boy of the Sun. He had asked him for a favor. Kuma listened. Kuma nodded. And when he arrived at Sabaudi, instead of scattering the Mugiwara to destroy them, he scattered them towards specific places chosen with purpose. Each Nakama was sent to train with a master, but not Luffy. Luffy was dispatched to Amazon Lily, where a destiny different from the old canon awaited. Hancock found him passed out on the Kuja beach. She cared for him. She fell in love without expecting it. She offered him her whole empire base. Luffy accepted the help, but not the love. He had a brother to rescue, and there was no time for anything else. Hancock swore to follow him forever. At the headquarters, Sengoku announced the public execution of Portgas D. Ace. The date was set for 3 weeks ahead. The whole Marine prepared for the spectacle. Luffy did not wait 3 weeks. He decided to go first to Impel Down to find allies. Hancock smuggled him in as her personal prisoner, the prison silent. He went down to level 5. He found Mr. Tu Bon Clay frozen. He revived him with sand warmth. He found Crocodile chained, beaten, offered freedom for loyalty. Crocodile accepted. He had nothing to lose. His fruit was already in the boy's body. His pride was not. He would follow him to see chaos. He went down to level 6 and freed Jinbei. The former Shichibukai hugged Luffy crying. He told him Ace had already been moved to the ship toward execution. But then Magellan appeared, the warden of Impel Down, the Doku no Mi, pure poison in human form, the most feared jailer of the entire ocean. Magellan said no prisoner left level 6 alive. He said it while expelling a hydra of violet poison the size of 3 ships combined toward the rebels. Luffy dodged the hydra by wrapping himself in sand. The sand absorbed the drops that grazed his body. The poison was trapped in dry grains without harm. Magellan opened his eyes wide. Nobody had ever survived the first touch of the hydra before. The Straw Hat Boy had neutralized the ultimate attack like rain. Luffy counterattacked with a lightning bolt charged with dense electricity that pierced the warden's chest. Magellan staggered. His own poison spurted from his nose in defense, but Luffy was already on him. He loaded sand into his fist and shoved it down the jailer's open mouth. The sand absorbed the poison from within. Magellan dropped to his knees, vomiting sand soaked in his own poison. His body could no longer produce more toxins. The inner well had completely dried up forever. Luffy hit the final blow with his fist wrapped in electricity and sand. Magellan flew against the wall of level 6 and stuck there, unconscious, nearly dead. The violet light came out of the defeated warden's body. A dark light, thick, almost liquid. It moved toward Luffy with the slowness of changing ownership. It entered the boy's chest. Luffy's veins were marked in purple for exactly 10 seconds. Then they returned to normal skin color and everything continued forward. Luffy raised his hand and a stream of bright violet poison shot from his palm. Then he redirected it inside and turned it into cure for wounds. The poison could heal or kill at will. The fruit awakened 2 faces at the same time. Ivankov, watching from afar, whispered that the boy was a miracle. The freed prisoners celebrated with roars. Jinbei hugged Luffy by the shoulders. Crocodile nodded from one side in deadly silence. Bon Clay cried with vast happiness immense. The march toward the surface became a procession. Mr. 3 opened doors with hard wax. Mr. 1 split bars with his steel body. Buggy joined by sheer accident. At the final exit, the Marines of level 1 tried to stop them. Luffy sent them a sandstorm charged with static electricity. The uniforms fell senseless on ground. When he came up to the surface of the dark sea, the dawn sun hit his face. Luffy smiled. Behind him advanced a delighted army of freed criminals. Within days, the new poster arrived. The photo showed Luffy leaving Impel Down with his hat tilted and his teeth gleaming with pure unrestrained fury inside. 1,500,000,000 berries, the highest figure ever granted to a rookie pirate in the documented history of the world government. The poster burned smoking. The seal read, "Escapee of the Sea Hell, liberator of world-class criminals, possible candidate for Yonko title, absolute priority over any other current military operation." Sengoku read it aloud before the admirals. Akainu clenched his fists until his palms bled. Aokiji lowered his head. Kizaru, this time, did not smile at all. On the stolen Impel Down ship, Luffy looked at the horizon. Marineford was hours away. Ace was still breathing. The execution clock kept ticking without waiting. Jinbei approached the captain. He told him the most powerful base of the Marine was waiting with 3 admirals, thousands of soldiers, and the Shichibukai all ready. He warned him Whitebeard would come with his entire fleet, that the war would be the greatest ever seen, that many would not return home after. Luffy listened while chewing meat. Then he wiped his mouth with his arm and said one single thing. He said he was going to take Ace out, that he was going to defeat the man who tried to kill him, that he was going to leave with his brother alive. That was the promise. Jinbei nodded. Crocodile smiled sideways with elegant contempt. Ivankov laughed in mad cackles. Bon Clay cried with pride again for the 10th time that exhausting day. The ship accelerated over the dark waves. The sea fog covered the improvised fleet. In the distance, the bells of Marineford began to ring, announcing the end. At the Marine Bay, the preparations were complete. Ace had already been raised onto the scaffold. The Kairoseki cuffs drained his strength from his entire body. Whitebeard arrived with 16 ships of his personal fleet. The Moby Dick split the water like an old god standing on the foam. The war was beginning. Sengoku looked at the sky and gave the order. The justice gates opened. The admirals took their positions. Aokiji to the left, Kizaru right, Akainu behind. And then, when everything seemed decided, the sky cracked open. A pirate ship fell from the clouds wrapped in melting ice. Luffy jumped down, hat blowing. He landed on the Marineford Plaza with his back straight and his eyes fixed on the scaffold. 50,000 Marines looked at him silent. Ace raised head. Their eyes met. Ace opened his mouth to say his brother's name. Luffy smiled beneath the hat. The greatest war of the century had now started. Akainu was the first to move. He jumped off the scaffold, launching a magma fist against Luffy with every intention of incinerating the boy in one strike. Luffy dodged it by turning into lightning. He appeared 3 meters from the admiral. He returned a punch loaded with dry sand that dried the magma forearm. Akainu stepped back for the first time in years. His blood was boiling. His forearm was smoking. The brat had forced him back inside his own base. Aokiji launched an ice spear the size of a tower. Luffy turned to sand, and the spear passed through without touching anything. He reappeared behind the admiral. He drove a Gomu no bazooka loaded with electricity into his back. Aokiji flew 20 meters into the frozen water. He lay stunned, paralyzed, briefly senseless still. Kizaru fired a beam of light at Ace from the scaffold. The bright ray flew toward the prisoner's neck. It would behead him in a 10th second. Luffy turned into yellow lightning and collided with the beam in midair. 2 opposite bolts crashed over the plaza. The shockwave knocked down nearby Marines all around. For the first time in history, somebody had matched the speed of the Pika Pika no Mi. Kizaru, suspended in the air, stopped smiling for one moment. He muttered he had not expected this. He came down and fired 2 more beams. Luffy dodged them. Crocodile, from the fleet, hurled a sand hurricane at Kizaru. The fight became chaos. Whitebeard broke the bay with a single shockwave from his Gura no Mi. The walls of Marineford trembled. The whole sea rose. Marco, commander of the 1st Division, flew over the plaza transformed into a blue phoenix. Vista, Jaws, Curiel, all the commanders unleashed their powers on the Shichibukai. Mihawk advanced with Yoru in his hand. "Good night for pirates," he said in a low voice. Commander Vista faced him. The 2 swords cracked the sky. Doflamingo cut 3 commanders with his strings. Moria unleashed 100 zombies on the plaza. Crocodile intercepted Doflamingo with sand loaded with old grudges. Shichibukai betrayed. Meanwhile, Luffy advanced toward the scaffold. Akainu pursued him, hurling magma fists. Luffy dodged, combining lightning and poison. Each dodge left a toxic violet cloud behind. Akainu roared that he was going to burn Luffy and Ace simultaneously. He sped up. He launched a giant magma fist straight at the scaffold. Not Luffy. The betrayal was clear. He did not care about the Straw Hat Boy. He went directly to kill Ace before anything else. The magma flew like fire. Luffy screamed his brother's name. He jumped. He activated the speed of lightning. He activated the elasticity of rubber. He activated defensive sand. 3 fruits synchronized in instant. He intercepted the magma fist in midair. He caught it with both hands covered in dry sand and hard wax. The magma burned his palms without piercing them. He stopped the attack in the air. Akainu froze in his charge. The scaffold was still intact. Ace stared from above with his eyes wide as moons. Luffy spun and sent the magma back at Akainu as a ball. The wax that covered his hands melted, but the magma flew like a baseball. Akainu received it in the chest, his own fist against his own flesh. He staggered backward. He coughed blood. He had not expected that move. Nobody had. Luffy landed in front of the scaffold. He jumped up. He freed Ace with a hard wax blow against the Kairoseki cuffs. The chains shattered like glass. Ace fell into the arms of his younger brother. He cried silently. Luffy hugged him with both elastic arms coiled around his body. He hoisted Ace upward, but then Akainu got up. The admiral was not defeated. His chest was smoking. His eyes were red. He advanced toward the brothers with the fury of volcanoes. He yelled at Luffy that he would not leave Marineford alive, that Ace was going to die that very afternoon, that justice did not permit demon heirs. Luffy passed Ace to Jinbei, who came running from below. He jumped off the scaffold. He walked toward Akainu with his eyes lowered, hiding the boy's face. When he raised his face, his yellow eyes were shining with pure electricity. He told Akainu in a calm voice to prepare to lose his own fruit today. die. Akainu laughed in his face. He laughed like a volcano erupting. He told him a brat would never take the Magu Magu no Mi from him. Untakeable. Luffy did not answer. He loaded his fist with sand, electricity, and poison simultaneously, a combination that no human had ever attempted in the entire history of fruits. The fist looked like a hostile planet, sand spinning around, lightning leaping between the grains, violet poison vapor covering the whole package. Akainu stepped back half-pace. Luffy screamed the name of the attack, Gomu Gomu, no Hydra Storm, and he hurled himself at Akainu with lightning speed and the weight of 3 fruits. Akainu tried to intercept him with magma, but the sand absorbed the magma's heat before the impact. The electricity passed through the Admiral's body inside. Poison entered. The fist landed at the center of his chest. Akainu shot back against a reinforced iron wall. The wall split. The Admiral fell on the other side, gasping, but he was still breathing. And in Marineford, still breathing meant still fighting. Akainu rose again, his body smoking and his hatred intact inside his every bone. On the west side of the bay, Whitebeard held his split head with one hand and the Naginata with the other. The Gura trembled under his wrist. Squardo, deceived by Sengoku's lies, had already stabbed him in the back in one quick scene. The Yonko's blood dripped over the cracked deck of marble, but the old man kept standing. He kept giving orders. He kept protecting his sons. A wounded Yonko was more dangerous than 100 healthy admirals. Legend. And then, from a corner of the harbor, a shadow that should not have been there arrived. Marshal D. Teach landed with his new crew, grinning blackly. Blackbeard looked at Whitebeard with old hunger. The Yami Yami no Mi was boiling inside his body. He wanted more. He wanted the Gura. He advanced toward the old captain among the smoking debris. He told him it was time, that the Empire was ending that afternoon. The successor was him. Whitebeard listened without moving his jaw. He raised the Naginata. He hit Teach with a Gura blow, square in the chest, sent him flying back. Teach stood up coughing blood. He drew his pistols. He called his whole crew. But then, through the dust in the air, a new figure unexpected appeared. Luffy, the Straw Hat Boy, the East Blue Monster. He stepped between Whitebeard and Marshal D. Teach with a calm face and his yellow eyes shining. He told Teach not to come closer to the old man, that this death was not for him, that this fruit did not belong to him. Leave alive. Teach laughed in his face, but the laugh froze fast. Behind Luffy, Whitebeard watched with a new smile, a smile the old man had kept for decades. Teach activated the Yami Yami no Mi. A dark sphere grew in his hand. He launched the dark gravity at Luffy with the intent of absorbing him whole. Luffy turned to sand before being caught. He reappeared a meter from Teach. He drove a fist of glowing magma straight into the trader's open stomach. It was the first time Luffy used the magma stolen from Akainu. He had absorbed it seconds earlier at the other end of the plaza, still boiling. Teach flew through 5 columns in a row. His body broke his back against the 6th column. He vomited black blood. The darkness slipped from his hand. Luffy advanced toward him calmly. He loaded another fist with lightning and poison. Teach would have to take the second blow in under 3 seconds straight. But Teach was not stupid. He saw the fight was lost. He saw the Straw Hat Boy had something impossible inside the body. He saw his dream burning. He called his crew to retreat. Doc Q lifted him onto the horse. Lafitte spread his wings. Burgess covered the back. The whole band fled the harbor. Blackbeard escaped Marineford that day without the Gura, without his dream fulfilled, with 3 broken ribs and the hatred lodged in his bone, but alive. It was the greatest change in history. In the old canon, Teach had stolen the tremor fruit. In this new line, Teach fled with 1 fruit only. The entire future of the world was rewritten that afternoon. Marshal D. Teach's maximum threat was pruned before it could bloom. Nobody yet grasped the magnitude. Luffy turned to Whitebeard. The old man was smiling. He told the boy he had done something great, that the world would breathe easier from that strike. But Whitebeard also knew his time was running out. The wounds were many. Age weighed like a mountain on top. The tremor fruit drained the last energy. He asked Luffy to come closer. He told him about Ace. He told him about the One Piece. He told him about the heritage passing pirate to pirate. He told him Joy Boy was going to return to the world, that the Straw Hat Boy was the son the ocean had been waiting 8 centuries for. Then he gave one last Gura strike to the air. A white shockwave split the clouds over Marineford. People watching by Denden Mushi cried out shocked. Whitebeard died standing, with his Naginata buried in the ground like a banner, with his body full of wounds and his smile intact, dignity untouched. The light of the Gura no Mi came floating out of the fallen Yonko's body. It was a blue light, giant, like a tsunami contained inside. It moved through the air. It searched for a new body. It searched for a worthy heir. And then, against all logic, it veered toward Luffy. The tremor fruit recognized the sun. It recognized the successor. It entered Luffy's chest with a silent thunder that only the boy heard within his own heart. The world did not understand what had happened. Marco, commander of the 1st Division, fell to his knees. Vista lowered his sword. The sons cried for their father. Luffy stared at the old man for a very long instant. Then he removed his hat. He pressed it against his chest. He bowed silently toward the body. He put the hat back on. He turned toward the rest of the battlefield. Akainu was getting up in the distance with magma dripping from his torso. Luffy walked toward the Admiral with calm steps. Akainu saw him coming. He laughed. He told him he was ready to finish the job. This time, sure. He launched a giant magma fist. Luffy charged his own fist with magma too. The magma stolen in the first blow was already in his body. Clash. The clash lit all of Marineford. An orange explosion threw dust over the entire headquarters. The closest Marines fell unconscious from the heat. Stone melted where landed, but Akainu stepped back. Luffy did not. The Straw Hat Boy had learned to control the magma's temperature with Enel's electricity, the lightning's cold, cooled heat. It was an impossible combination. Stabilized magma, cutting heat without losing form. Akainu saw his own fruit had been improved by a brat in under 5 minutes. Luffy advanced again. He combined hard wax with poison. The fist was covered in poisoned violet spikes. He hit the Admiral's left leg. The leg paralyzed. Akainu fell to his knees. The poison climbed through his blood. He tried to stand with pure magma, but Luffy was already on him with sand fists. He hit him 3 times in the face. Akainu saw black. He saw red. He saw black again. His nose broke. His jaw cracked. His eyes swelled, but the Admiral did not fall. He was a beast of absolute justice, a beast Sengoku had trained for decades to never surrender against pirates. Luffy understood he needed something bigger, something final. He closed his eyes for a second. He concentrated all the absorbed fruits inside his right fist absolutely. Rubber, sand, lightning, poison, wax, explosion, mochi not yet, magma, feline, separation, copy, inherited tremor still dormant, 11 fruits beating at the same time inside. The fist became a chaotic sphere of living elements. Sand spinning, lightning crackling, magma dripping, poison steaming, wax reinforcing, rubber extending across the whole shape. Luffy shouted the name of the attack. He had invented it in that instant. Gomu Gomu no Sun God Cannon. And he charged at Akainu with thunderous speed. Akainu tried to shield himself with defensive magma. It was not enough. The fist went through his chest, broke 4 ribs, pierced a lung, spit red magma. The Admiral flew against the iron wall of the most reinforced prison. The wall split into 5 pieces. Akainu fell on the other side, motionless, defeated. For the first time in his military career, Sakazuki was unconscious in combat. For the first time in Marine history, a brat had defeated a sitting admiral. Sengoku could not speak. Garp could not either. Aokiji stayed watching from far away without attacking. Kizaru scratched his neck and whispered, "This was serious now." Luffy approached the body of Akainu. He placed his hand on the chest. The red light came out of the defeated admiral. A dense light moved toward. It entered Luffy's chest with a volcanic roar. The boy's left forearm was covered in glowing magma instantly. The skin there turned dark red permanently from then on. 12 fruits, 12 living powers inside one single body. Rubber, separation, explosion, wax, copy, sand, lightning, feline, poison, magma, dormant tremor, the Hito Nika presiding. Luffy threw Akainu's body in front of Sengoku. He told the fleet admiral to take his dog away, that the war was ending that very afternoon already. Sengoku did not reply. Aokiji silently picked up Akainu's body. Kizaru floated backward. The Marine understood that insisting meant more deaths. Retreat was the only option. Jinbei came running with Ace on his back. Ace was conscious. He was wounded, but breathing. The residual magma burns covered his torso, but were not fatal. Luffy passed his hand over the burns. He activated the poison in healing mode. The poison absorbed the residual magma from within. The burns sealed in clean seconds. Ace looked at his younger brother with eyes full of tears. He told him he thought he was going to die. Luffy answered that was the old life, that now they were going to sail together, that the entire sea belonged to the two of them, that the One Piece was waiting with infinite patience. The mixed fleet retreated from Marineford. Hancock covered the exit by petrifying Marines. Jinbei swam ahead red, opening paths in the water. Ivankov organized the wounded on decks. Luffy stood on the bow of his ship, looking back toward the smoking Marineford, toward the empty scaffold, toward the body of Whitebeard not moved yet. He removed his hat one last time. He raised it skyward. He made a silent promise to old Edward Newgate, then he put it back on. The ship departed toward the horizon. The greatest war of the century had ended, and the whole world knew that very same night the pirate era had changed. 2 days later, the new poster arrived. The photo showed Luffy standing on rubble, with his left forearm in smoking magma and his right in golden sand. 3 billion berries, a historic figure, 3 times the previous poster, the highest mark ever granted to a single pirate in the entire history of the government. The poster seal said, "Emerging King of the Sea. Absolute elimination. Do not engage with fewer than 3 simultaneous admirals. Global mobilization. Notice to all member kingdoms." At headquarters, Sengoku resigned that same week. Akainu was hospitalized for 2 full months. Aokiji disappeared without notice. Kizaru took vacation for the first time ever. In the seas of the New World, the Yonko met in secret. Big Mom slammed the table with her fist. Kaido spat sake on the floor. Shanks silent. They decided, for the first time in decades, to consider the Straw Hat as a shared threat. The world's balance had shattered. The 5th Emperor sailed unstoppable. On Kuja Island, Luffy and his crew rested for a week. Ace recovered his strength. Jinbei trained the group in hockey. Hancock organized the Amazon combat fleet. Ace spoke with Luffy one night by the fire. He told him he wanted to join the crew, that he no longer wanted to lead the Spade Pirates. Luffy accepted without thinking twice. He told him it was about time. He told him the entire sea would tremble with 2 D brothers sailing together finally. Within 2 days, the Mugiwara regrouped at Sabaody. Zoro, Sanji, Nami, Usopp, Chopper, Robin, Frankie, Brooke arrived, each one with stories of intense personal training. The reunion was short, no time skip, no long pause. The whole crew boarded the Thousand Sunny with Ace officially incorporated and set sail toward Fishman Island. At Fishman Island, Hody Jones attempted something but did not finish the sentence. Luffy defeated him with a single directed bolt in under 1 full minute. Now the crew had 11 visible members, plus Hancock in the Allied Outer Fleet, plus the former Impel Down prisoners distributed across satellite ships circling around. Sanji was upset by Ace's arrival at first, then they became friends fast. Ace cooked meat. Sanji cooked meat better. The Sunny's kitchen turned into competition. Zoro watched Ace in silence for a week. Then he told him, without apparent emotion, that if he betrayed the captain, he would cut his head off. The first destination of the New World was Punk Hazard, but the island was already abandoned. Caesar Clown had escaped. Trafalgar Law waited for Luffy with proposal. Law had the Opa Ope no Miai, one of the rarest fruits in the world. He could cut and rearrange anything inside his room. Proposed going after Doflamingo. Luffy accepted. The Mugiwara Heart Alliance was signed that same night beside a campfire. 2 captains with different dreams, same next enemy, same sea ahead, waiting. Before leaving, Law warned Luffy. He told him Doflamingo was different from Akainu, that he fought dirty, that he controlled entire kingdoms. Do not underestimate that king. Luffy bit a piece of meat and told him he was going to defeat him anyway, that he would add the strings. Each new fruit was new possibility. On Dressrosa Island, Doflamingo received the news with a hyena grin. He told his subordinates that the Boy of the Sun was coming to try his luck. He prepared the trap. He activated the bird cage. The whole island was enclosed in invisible strings that contracted each minute. Anyone disloyal to Doflamingo would die. Luffy arrived at Dressrosa with Zoro, Sanji, Robin, Frankie, Law, and Ace. The rest watched the ship at safe distance. The invasion began silently without warning. In the first fight, Luffy faced Pika, the stone subordinate. Pika had the Ishi no Mi. He moved stone mountains with his mind. He was Titan. Luffy answered him with magma. He melted the stone of Pika's body from within. The giant collapsed like a falling volcano. Pika fled the melted body steaming, but Luffy was already on the agent's human body. He hit him with a punch of hard wax and directed lightning. Pika flew against a wall unconscious. The gray light of the Ishi no Mi left the defeated body, but this time Luffy raised his hand and rejected it. He did not want. He had enough heavy stones in his arsenal. He needed what Doflamingo had. He needed the strings. The rest was noise. The gray light drifted away, gone. At the royal palace, Doflamingo came down to the garden to receive the boy. He wore his violet glasses and the smile of one who controlled markets. He told Luffy that Dressrosa was a cage and that he was the king of the cage. Luffy answered that he had seen bigger cages already before. Doflamingo launched his strings. 5 invisible threads cut the air toward Luffy. The boy dodged them by turning into sand. The threads passed through without catching, reappeared. Doflamingo opened his eyes wide. He launched the spider net, a giant net of strings. Luffy turned the net into ashes with a concentrated lightning bolt finger. The fight progressed. Doflamingo launched Black Knight, the puppet he controlled with strings from afar. Luffy dismantled him with a fist loaded with explosion. Pieces flew. Doflamingo summoned the birdcage, trapping Luffy inside red strings the size of a stadium. But Luffy was not frightened. He smiled. He told Doflamingo lovely. He loaded his fist with magma, sand, lightning, and poison. 4 fruits in one hand. He jumped. He hit Doflamingo on the jaw with everything stacked together. Doflamingo flew against the palace throne. The throne broke. The birdcage strings loosened. Doflamingo got up with a broken smile and one less fang. He activated his fruit's awakening. He turned all of Dressrosa City into living strings. Every wall, every street, every building transformed into rope controllable by his mind. Luffy understood this was serious. He activated lightning speed and moved through the city, dodging living strings. Every corner was a trap, every roof a guillotine. But Luffy also fought dirty when needed. He turned his legs into sand. He jumped to the upper air level. He fired a magma cannon straight at chest. Doflamingo blocked with a string shield. The magma melted the strings. The blow reached the chest. Doflamingo spat blood. He fell back, but he was still grinning. Luffy landed in front of him. He loaded the final fist with everything. Rubber, sand, lightning, poison, magma, wax, explosion, feline, 7 fruits in one move. He shouted the name of the attack, Gomu Gomu, no solar eclipse punch, and he hurled himself at the king of Dressrosa with the full force accumulated. The blow pierced Doflamingo from side to side. The Shichibukai's body flew 400 meters across the Dressrosa sky. He landed in the harbor, totally unconscious. The bird cage deactivated. The living strings became dead stone again. The city breathed. The people cried with joy from the windows. Rebecca fell down, crying. Luffy walked up to Doflamingo. He touched the chest with an open palm. The pink light of the Ito Ito no Mi came floating out of the body. It entered Luffy with a hiss. Pink threads appeared between his fingers instantly. Luffy tried cutting the air with a thread. The air split into 2 pieces cleanly. He smiled. He tried controlling a fallen Don Quixote soldier. The pink threads tied themselves to the soldier's body. He raised him as a puppet, made him wave. 13 fruits inside one single body. The accumulation seemed absurd, but Luffy controlled them all, each time more easily, as if the Hito Nika organized them. Within days, the new poster arrived. The photo showed Luffy on the broken Dressrosa throne, with Doflamingo's crown crushed under his left heel of his foot. 4 billion berries. The poster said, Overthrower of Kingdoms, symbolic killer of the world economy. Capture impossible. Extraordinary mobilization of Cypher Paul Zero on elimination mission. The 5 Gorosei met for the first time in 40 years to discuss a single pirate. The dark hall of Mary Jawaz smelled of old fear stale. One of them, Saint Saturno, looked at the others and said in a low voice that the boy of the sun was approaching faster than predicted ending. At Whole Cake, Big Mom burned the poster with a single breath. She told Katakuri to prepare himself, that the Straw Hat Boy would arrive soon enough. Katakuri read the poster in silence. He raised his trident. He rested it on his shoulder. He told his mother he was ready, that the future seen, but Katakuri's future had a black stain, a void, a point he could not see. Something in the Straw Hat Boy blocked his advanced Kenbunshoku completely. It bothered him. It was the first time in years his vision of the future failed. He closed his eyes. The black stain remained there, waiting him. In Wano, Kaido also received the poster. He ripped it from the messenger with a dragon claw. He crumpled it. He threw it into the volcano below. He told Orochi that the Straw Hat Boy was coming to take his country away. Orochi trembled. Kaido laughed harder. He told him they would have visitors. Meanwhile, the Mugiwara left Dressrosa with a larger entourage. Bartolomeo, Cavendish, Bellamy, and Sai swore loyalty. The official Straw Hat Grand Fleet was founded that rainy afternoon. 5,500 men joined Luffy's service. The Grand Fleet covered 3 seas at the same time. Each sub-captain swore to die for the boy if needed. Luffy did not want to lead a fleet, but the fleet self organized around his name. The shadow of the Pirate King began to take shape on Own. Sanji received a message from his family, a soaked Vivre card. The letter came from Vinsmoke territory. His father Judge claimed him for an arranged Charlotte wedding. The crew then knew Whole Cake was the next destination. Sanji opposed it. He wanted to go alone. Luffy laughed in his face. No Nakama goes alone. The Sunny set course for Big Mom's territory. The fleet stayed behind, covering the retreat. Only the main Mugiwara plus Jinbei, Ace, and Hancock crossed over. In the Candy territory, the war began before stepping foot on land. Cracker, the Cookie commander, waited in the Seminola forest with a baked armed army. Cracker had the Bisu Bisu no Mi. He turned anything into Cookie hard as steel. He attacked Luffy with 100 perfectly formed swarmed cookie soldiers from sides. Luffy melted them all with magma. The hard cookie became charred crumbs. Cracker was left alone, sweating, staring at the Straw Hat Boy with eyes wide open. Luffy hit him with 3 lightning-loaded punches. Cracker exploded like a bag of crumbs. The yellow light of the cookie fruit floated out, but rejected. He did not need it. 14 fruits were too many to bother with lesser things. He would only accept what was worth it. The cookie was not worth. He advanced toward Big Mom's castle with the crew. Pedro, the mink guardian, sacrificed himself to open the path. His explosion lit up the night, remembered him. In the main hall, Big Mom waited seated on her candy throne. She had Mother Carmel engraved in her memory. Katakuri stood to her right as guard. She told Luffy she was going to put him inside a candy the size of a person, that his soul would feed the kingdom for the next millennium. Luffy answered her while chewing meat stolen from the table. He told her he would first break her son's face. Then they would discuss the remaining menu. Katakuri came down from the throne. He stood in front of Luffy. He told him in a low voice that the future had been seen. Boy lose, but the black stain remained in his vision. Katakuri could not see clearly the end of the combat. Something blocked his Kenbunshoku like an infinite fog wall. The fight began in the main hall. Big Mom laughed from the throne. Katakuri threw the trident loaded with white mochi. Luffy dodged it, jumping to ceiling, but Katakuri followed him. He appeared up there with an impossible movement. He drove the trident into Luffy's shoulder. Blood fell on the floor. Katakuri smiled under. He was the strongest of the sweet commanders. His Kenbunshoku let him dodge everything. His Mochi Mochi no Mi gave him perfect elastic defense, almost unbeatable. But Luffy came prepared. He activated lightning speed. He fired a barrage of punches loaded with magma. Katakuri dodged them all with the advanced future vision. Luffy understood the trick was not working. He changed strategy. He called Brook. Brook activated his music. A soft melody wrapped the air of the main hall. Katakuri was distracted half a second. Enough. Luffy turned his arm into pink threads and tied his wrists. Then he drove a wax fist with explosion in. Katakuri flew against a wall. He stood up coughing mochi crumbs. He told Luffy it was the first time someone had touched his body in real combat. Big Mom became enraged. She threw a Napoleon loaded with giant hockey at Luffy. Luffy blocked with a magma arm wrapped in wax, but the blow flung. Both of them ended up lying on the floor of the hall. Katakuri got up first. He offered his hand to Luffy to stand up. It was code. Luffy accepted. They stood up together. They decided, without speaking, to move the fight outside the castle to not involve Big Mom directly. Out a window. In the mirror realm, Katakuri felt at home. The Mira Mira no Mi of Brûlé allowed movement between reflections. Katakuri dragged Luffy there inside for advantage. But Luffy also played with mirrors. He used Bon Clay's face copy to turn into Brûlé. He confused Katakuri for half a second, appeared behind with magma. Katakuri flew through 4 mirrors. He landed in an empty hall. He stood up breathing in shallow gasps. He told Luffy he admired the combination, like king. Luffy answered that he was not king yet, that he would use that title when he reached the end of the sea. For now, just pirate fighter. The fight continued for hours. Katakuri used future sight to dodge each punch. Luffy combined fruits to surprise him. At moments, one, at moments other, until Luffy understood the key. Nika's imagination broke the fixed future. If Luffy did not know what he was going to do, Katakuri did not either. He closed his eyes. He let the 13 fruits choose by themselves. His body moved without him thinking anything. The fist, loaded by itself, attacked impossibly upward. Katakuri did not see it. The black stain had finally taken shape. It was pure imagination. It was Nika fighting without script. The commander took strike face. He flew and landed in a crater. He stood up bleeding from the mouth, but this time he could not smile anymore. The scarf had fallen, exposed. Luffy approached. He picked up the scarf from the ground. He gave it back. He told him that smile was a warrior's, not something to be ashamed. Then he accepted the scarf. He put it in his pocket. He told Luffy to finish the fight, that a Big Mom commander could not surrender without dying. Luffy understood. He loaded the fist with everything. 14 fruits if you counted the dormant tremor. He hit Katakuri in the center of the chest with future. Katakuri was left unconscious in the crater, without dying, just defeated. That was what the code demanded. The white light of the Mochi Mochi floated toward Luffy. It entered his body. Luffy tried covering his arm with white mochi. The defense was sticky, elastic, almost like another rubber but denser. Behind came the vision. For the first time, Luffy could see 2 seconds ahead in combat. Combined with his Nika imagination, that vision turned into a terrifying strategic combat tool feared. The crew regrouped. Sanji rescued his sister Reiju. He refused the wedding. Vinsmoke Judge lost in combat against Ace in under 3 minutes, clean and violent. Big Mom roared in her castle. She activated Prometheus, Zeus, and Napoleon. She launched herself into the sky to chase the Sunny, but Luffy was already gone. The Mugiwara escaped with the Tamatabako fleet. The candy explosion echoed on the horizon. Whole cake was left smoking behind their backs. The legend kept growing. Within days, the new poster arrived. The photo showed Luffy in the Seminola forest with Katakuri fallen in shadows behind him and the scarf-folded shoulder. 5,500,000,000 berries. The poster said, "Defeater of Sweet Commanders. Threat confirmed at Yonko level. Maximum mobilization of Cypher Paul 0 plus admirals." At Marine headquarters, the new Fleet Admiral Sakazuki banged the table with his incomplete magma fist. He had woken from the coma with hatred intact always. Sakazuki could no longer produce magma. His fruit lived in Luffy's body, but he was still admiral by physical force and pure will, sworn not to rest. Meanwhile, the Sunny headed toward Wano. Kaido waited at Onigashima with thousands of beast pirates. The country was crushed under the joint tyranny of Dragon Orochi. Before arriving, Luffy trained for 3 weeks in Zoo with the Minks. He learned advanced haki with the help of Carrot and posthumous Pedro. His Rio perfected. He also reviewed his fruits. They all beat inside him. 13 awake, 1 dormant. 13 currents of power arranged around the Hito Nika like planets orbiting. Something worried him. He felt the Gura no Mi was not responding. Whitebeard's tremor fruit was in his body, but silent, as if waiting for something. Rayleigh had sent him a message via Den Mushi before Zoo. He had told him the Hito Nika had its own awakening. It would change. That when the moment came, all the fruits would awaken at the same time. That the boy of the straw hat would become something the world had never. Luffy kept the information without fully grasping it, but he suspected the moment would come in Wano. That Kaido was the final door. After Kaido, everything. The Sunny reached Wano through the eastern waterfall. The waterfall rose instead of falling. That was the trick of the closed country. The ship climbed covered haki. On the inner coast, Kinemon waited with the Samurai Alliance. Trafalgar Law had arrived earlier. The Minks had come down from Zoo. The rebellion had a confirmed date. Onigashima, the floating island of the dragon, the fire festival. That night, the destiny of the country would be decided, and by extension, the whole world's destiny. Luffy entered the castle through the roof, breaking tiles with his fist. He fell into the main banquet hall. Kaido waited in human form, seated at table. Kaido smiled. He told the boy he was late. That dinner had already started. That after dessert, they would discuss who ruled the world from today onward. Luffy answered him while chewing a piece of duck from the table. He told him dessert was him himself falling to the floor. Kaido laughed so hard. Then he stood up. He transformed. He turned his body into a blue dragon 40 meters long. The Uo no Mi model Seiryu activated to maximum power. He flew to the ceiling. He passed through the tower. He fell on the outer courtyard before Luffy. He roared. He said tonight he would test the boy. Luffy looked at the dragon. He smiled. He told him he had already fought bigger things. Then he loaded the 13 fruits in his body to maximum. He combined sand and magma in the first fist. A burning dust storm flew against the dragon's face. Kaido passed through it like nothing. Storm grazed only. Luffy changed tactics. He turned his legs into lightning and jumped onto the dragon's back. He launched a poison hydra against the monster's spine. Poison covered everything, but Kaido had hard skin. The poison did not penetrate the blue scales. Kaido shook his body and Luffy flew off like a leaf in the wind. He recovered using pink threads. He held himself in the air, dangling from clouds with invisible ropes. He climbed back up to the sky. Kaido met breath. The dragon breath crashed against Luffy. Luffy blocked with hard wax covered in white mochi. He withstood the impact, but the wax melted. The mochi charred down. Kaido came down. He returned to human form. He hit Luffy in the head with the mace. Luffy spat blood, stood up, loaded magma, and lightning again. Kaido blocked with pure conqueror's haki. The boy's haki could not penetrate. It was the first time his haki bounced against another. Kaido was simply greater. The fight tilted toward Kaido. Luffy fought with everything. He combined fruits in new orders. He invented techniques in the air. But the Yonko was a millennial beast. Luffy fell down for the first time. Kaido stepped on his chest with the giant boot. He told him fighting with fruits did not work. Pure will. Luffy got up coughing blood. He attacked again. He fell again. A second time. A third time. A fourth. Kaido, tired of hitting him, said enough already. On the fifth fall, Luffy lay on his back, staring at the night sky of Onigashima. Blood ran down his temple. The hat rolled away by itself. Momonosuke, the hidden prince, came running to Luffy's body. He cried on his chest. He told him to stand up, that the country needed him always now. Luffy listened to the child. He closed his eyes, and then, in the silence of the heart, he heard another sound. An older, a deeper, liberation drum. Boom, boom, boom. The Hito no Mi model Nika began to truly awaken. Luffy's body filled with white light. His hair rose covered in fire, but this time it did not awaken alone. This time, one by one, the 13 remaining fruits awoke alongside Nika. They synchronized around the Sun God Orchestra. orchestra. The sand became conscious and wrapped his body like a living cloak. The lightning became an infinite circuit running through every vein of the boy. The magma flowed. The poison became selective healing, beating in the marrow like a second heart. The mochi crystallized into white armor stuck to the skin. Threads crossed dimensions. The feline gave him impossible reflexes. The explosions inverted themselves, sucking everything around inward. The wax crystallized hard as diamond. The face copy mutated momentarily power. The body separation became teleportation of segments. The Gura no Mi finally awakened too, beating in the wrists like two small earthquakes ready to release. Luffy stood up from the floor. His body was an impossible mix. Left arm of magma, right arm of sand, shoulders with blue scales, yellow electric eyes shining. Pink threads surrounded his body like snakes. A shadow of 8 heads, still empty, formed behind the boy waiting to be completed. He was Nika hybrid divine real. Kaido looked at him. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Yonko felt something new in his chest. Fear, not fear of dying, fear losing. Luffy raised his hands. He launched a combined attack. Gomu, no sand dragon bazooka. The elastic fist loaded with sand and transformed into dragon upon impact. It flew against the Onigashima castle. The wall split. Kaido got up. He attacked back. Luffy received him with Goro no magma storm, glowing magma raindrops. The floating island shook. Luffy combined Bara Bara mochi trap, separating his arms to catch Kaido from behind, while the main body struck him face to face. Then came Doku no snake coil, 8 poison heads with the shape of Yamata, no Orochi wrapping the dragon. Kaido lost his form, returned to human bleeding. He fell to his knees. For the first time in his life, Kaido the Invincible fell to his knees in combat. Luffy approached, loaded Nika, imagination punch. Reality warped around the fist. Rubber, sun, dream, and freedom concentrated into a single movement. The blow went through Kaido. It buried him 100 meters down. Kaido lay unconscious on the crater created by the impact. Luffy touched his chest. The blue light of the Uo no Mi model Seiryu came floating. Orochi came running, his 8 heads regenerating shakily. Luffy defeated him with a single absolute strike, absorbing the country's last fruit. 15 fruits in a body divine. The next poster arrived golden. The photo showed the boy of the sun in his full hybrid form, standing on Kaido's fallen body. 8 billion berries. At Egghead, Vegapunk revealed the truth. Each Gorosei had a mythical Zoan. Luffy wounded Saturno in combat, but did not steal the fruit. They escaped toward Elbaf. On the island of giants, Imu descended personally from the sky. He sent no subordinates. He came in person. He stood before Luffy with dark shadows around. The two measured each other in silence. Imu recognized Joy Boy. Luffy smiled. He cracked his knuckles. The camera rose to the sky. Cut to black. Continued.